Armenians in the Ottoman Empire, a history of roots, faith, and tragedy. For centuries, the Armenian people lived as a distinct Christian minority within the Ottoman world. They were merchants, artisans, scholars, woven into commerce and culture across eastern Anatolia and beyond. One of the world's oldest Christian communities, their faith since the 4th century shaped identity and resilience. They lived mainly in the eastern provinces, lands they called home for generations. Their villages were centers of education, craftsmanship, and community life. Yet legally they were dhimmi, protected but second class, barred from arms and burdened by special taxes. Their prosperity sometimes bred resentment, a fragile balance easily turned by nationalist politics. As the 19th century turned, nationalist ideas swept Europe and into the empire. Armenians petitioned for reforms, security, fair taxation, equal representation under the law. Ottoman leaders feared Russian expansion and saw any Christian minority as a potential fifth column. Newspapers and propaganda twisted calls for rights into proof of betrayal. The Young Turks' 1908 revolution briefly promised equality, a fragile hope for minorities. But the movement hardened under the three pashas, Talat Pasha, Ismail Enver Pasha, and Ahmed Jamal Pasha. Their aim, a homogeneous Turkish state. World War I gave them the cover to act. April 24, 1915, the date that marks the beginning of the modern catastrophe. That night in Constantinople, under orders from Talat Pasha, authorities rounded up Armenian leaders. Writers, poets, doctors, lawyers, priests, and politicians. The intellectual and cultural leadership were arrested without charges. Families watched as pillars of their communities were taken away. The nation deliberately decapitated. From jails and trains, the arrested were sent away, the first step toward mass deportation. With leadership gone, communities were left disoriented and unable to organize resistance. April 24th is remembered today as Red Sunday, a day of mourning and remembrance. In May 1915, the temporary law of deportation gave military authorities sweeping powers. Communities were given hours to leave. Able-bodied men were conscripted and often executed. Caravans of women, children, and the elderly were marched across Anatolia toward the Syrian desert. Their destination, Deir ez-Zor, remote routes chosen to hide the killings from the world. Scorching sun, little food, little water. The journey was designed to kill. Special detachments, bandits, and local militias attacked the columns. Those who fell were shot or left to die. Survivors at Deir ez-Zor faced overcrowded enclosures, disease, starvation, and mass killings. The extermination was systematic. Massacres, death marches, starvation, and cultural destruction. Men were separated and executed. Others were drowned or thrown from cliffs. Women and children were left defenseless, abducted, raped, or forced into slavery and conversion. Churches, monasteries, schools, and manuscripts were destroyed, a campaign of cultural annihilation. This was bureaucratic. Talat Pasha issued orders and requested tallies of the numbers disposed of across provinces. Forced marches, starvation, mass killings, all elements of a centrally planned program of annihilation. The result? An attempted destruction of a people and their future. Mothers and children targeted to erase the next generation. News leaked out. Diplomats and missionaries reported atrocities. Henry Morgenthau Sr., the U.S. ambassador, warned Washington. The New York Times and others published many accounts, but the world, consumed by World War I, failed to stop it. Of roughly 2 million Armenians in 1914, up to 1.5 million perished between 1915 and the early 1920s. Survivors scattered to the United States, France, Russia, Lebanon, forming a global Armenian diaspora. Some perpetrators were tried in absentia, but most escaped justice. The modern Republic of Turkey maintains a policy of denial. Today, more than 30 countries and many scholars recognize the events as genocide. Recognition and remembrance continue. The world's silence was echoed later by others. Adolf Hitler infamously asked, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" We remember, and we witness, so such history is never forgotten.